management, given our current state of knowledge and expert opinion, again in full partnership with organizations representing CFS clinical and scientific expertise. Is that still a priority of ours? So let's reaffirm that. Provision of comprehensive information about CFS in partnership with CFS experts to the scientific community, medical and mental health providers, educational institutions, and the public for both adult and pediatric CFS through DHS resources. Is that still a priority of ours? If it is, then we should reaffirm these, and we can sort of substitute that for what we've been sort of morphing around in terms of how to influence it. But that is sort of the overarching goals, I think, and someone can correct me, of this committee towards the 5-year plan. If that's the case, then why don't we try and reaffirm this, supplement it with what we've now learned and what's now important, and bring that forth.
Yeah, it might be smart to say just that the committee would expect the secretary to assure that the recommendations made, and we give the date, that have all those important things, are made priorities for the 5-year CDC research plan. Because it's in there, it's a very big plan. But with that, those were the actually very good recommendations for the priorities.
So just to respond, I guess, to Mike, when we got that plan last time, I guess we had feedback towards that, and that's how we derived this recommendation. Things have changed, at least in some respect, so we want to broaden it at least a little bit. And I guess be disappointed that we haven't gotten the feedback from the secretary on it. But let's reaffirm this if that's how we feel.
The recommendation, in a sense,
Okay. All right.
Jason, I guess what we're saying is that a 5-year plan has come out. We look back at recommendation 2. We try to look at the 5-year plan, and we see them as discrepant. And we're kind of questioning the 5-year plan because it doesn't reflect the same priorities that we basically made our recommendation. So we have concerns, again, about the 5-year plan. If we tell the secretary we have significant concerns about this 5-year plan and we think something should be done, we can either make that vague or we could basically make it specific and say another review has to occur, or we hope that you will take corrective action. It can be either somewhat vague or it can be more specific, but the basic point is recommendation 2 that we basically put in here has not been fully captured or even adequately captured in the 5-year plan.
I would agree with that. I would say that it hasn't been adequately captured, and because of that, we want to reaffirm or go back on record with respect to what we believe to be what we think should be those priorities. And if we need to broaden it, then let's broaden it.
Yeah, I think the 5-year plan actually includes that, but it's large. It's so large and vague that it would be lost if you didn't have those kind of clear recommendations up front. And that's what I would recommend. But
I think that we did a very nice job last meeting to identify these as sort of the overarching goals. And unless there's some compelling reason to move away from those, then we shouldn't.
So Jason, if you're willing to let this motion be tabled, and Jason, if you're willing to take your idea of a motion on the table, if I could basically real quickly summarize it, recommendation 2, which they can basically print, of 6 months ago, was formulated. We have now examined the 5-year plan. We're dissatisfied with the implementation of our recommendations. We don't think the 5-year plan adequately represents what we had recommended.
Yeah, I think that's appropriate, and I would make that motion and just articulate and encapsulate what we had as recommendation 2, other than the point that says provide adequate funding, because we're probably going to lose the secretary right with those 3 words.
So I put a motion on the table. Is anybody seconding that motion?
No, because I disagree that you should take away the adequate funding.
Oh.
I think that you just gutted it.
But isn't it funded? So are we asking?
I think it's fine to leave adequate funding there. It doesn't hurt it, and it would, I think, hurt it more to take it away. But you need to do that friendly amendment about the emphasis on viral etiologies.
Right.
Can I just ask to put a motion on the motion I threw on there without his friendly amendment, with Nancy's friendly amendment? Can we have a motion? Can we have that seconded by any chance?
Second.
So now we have a motion on the floor.
And motion can be discussed, or why don't we repeat it? As I understand it now, Rebecca, you withdrew.
Okay, this is the amendment as it stands. I think I typed everything as quickly as I could. The 5-year plan should prioritize the following areas. Is that the right?
Well, just if I may,
It's here.
I'm taking
Yeah,
Nancy's
I took
perspective on the funding and just vet that out. I don't feel strongly about taking it out per se, other than my concern that when we say provide adequate funding, the secretary may tune out the rest of it. So if you feel strongly, and you think it's compelling, then I don't want to stand in the way of that. I think the bigger part
I'm
of it
not
is...
strong on it, but I'm concerned that, the problem is, well, we addressed leadership already.
And I put the motion on the table, and it's been seconded. So ultimately, it's my decision, I think, and I'm going to side with
All
Nancy.
right, Lenny.
Okay.
All right, Rebecca, could you read what the...
Okay, so Nancy, what was your friendly amendment? Because I didn't.
I just left the language alone.
It's the language exactly as it was in 3,
But number 1, you added,
except that we've added the XMRV.
no, I'd say viral, okay?
Okay.
Because that whole herpes, XMR thing, interaction thing should be in there. So,
Okay.
so open it up.
So how would you have number 1 read, Nancy? Identification of...
Just as it does, and then we get to etiology, emphasizing viral etiologies, or increasing efforts in viral etiologies, or something like that.
That's your motion.
Okay.
Friendly amendment accepted.
So, whenever you're ready, Rebecca,
Okay.
there's no sense rushing it.
So I'll go with the same first sentence, which I'll retype. Provide adequate funding to the CDC and effectively carry out a detailed 5-year plan. This should include, but not be limited to, immediate progress in these following priority areas: identification of biomarkers, including efforts in viral etiology of CFS, creation of guidelines for adult and pediatric CFS management in full partnership with organizations representing CFS scientific and clinical expertise, provision of web-based guidelines for CFS management given our current state of knowledge and expert opinion, again in full partnership with organizations representing CFS clinical and scientific expertise, and provision of comprehensive information about CFS in partnership with CFS experts in the scientific community, medical and mental health care providers, educational institutions, and the public for both adult and pediatric CFS through DHHS resources.
All right, so if it's okay, if no one has any, we will reword it so it's in English and sentences in the period to write, but that's the motion. Is there a motion to call the question?
Yes.
Okay. A second? All right, all those in favor? Oh, is there any opposed? You opposed?
Nope, I was slow.
Oh, slow. All right. Now so we now have, instead of 3, we have now 2,
3.
No, we have 3.
We have 3.
Instead of 4.
instead of 4. Okay, so the 4, we're done with that.
Yes.
What?
Almost
Yeah, we
3.
worked it through.
Great.
And it's
So-
almost 3 o'clock.
And it's almost 3 o'clock. All right, now what we'd like to do is, I know airplanes.
Are we missing?
Just to be clear, because Lenny and I were actually trying to figure out what we have, in terms of the recommendations that we have now that have been approved, I think unanimously, we have Rebecca's from this morning, correct?
Centers of Excellence.
Centers of Excellence. We have Christine's first one, correct?
Yes.
And then we have the last 3 that we've done? So
Yes.
altogether we have 5.
I think so, but
Yes.
and I'll send out any,
5.
yes. And is there any other recommendations that the group would like to consider at this time?
Well, not a recommendation, but, as we've been talking, I meant at some point before the votes occurred to get Mike's take on at least some of this. I mean, Mike's an important ex officio officer. I'm not sure how you feel about what we're doing right now, but I'd be